Gentleman yields back his time. Gentleman from Alabama.
Mr. Chairman, I yield 4 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Hensarling.
Gentleman is recognized for 4 minutes.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, Mr. Speaker. There are aspects of this legislation that I certainly appreciate. All Americans have been outraged. It's a word that we use frequently and we use justifiably about some of the compensation packages we've seen from failed companies that come with tin cup in hand to the United States taxpayer looking for more. This bill has some provisions that adds increased transparency, some increased accountability, and that's good. But unfortunately, the bad in the bill way outshadows the good. And so what I have always said, Mr. Speaker, is what you do with your money is your business. What you do with the taxpayer money is our business. And, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, you can't just read the bumper sticker slogan. You actually have to read the legislation. And so we hear speech after speech about these failed institutions taking all of this government money. Well, I wonder then why in committee, on a party line vote, did we vote down an amendment that I brought that would have ensured that the bailout recipients, that this legislation applied to them and them only. So they're the poster children in this debate, but yet the legislation extends potentially to every public company in America that somehow is defined as a quote-unquote covered financial institution. And by the way, I would say to my friends on the other side of the aisle, the best way to deal with risky pay schemes is to quit bailing them out in the first place. My friends on the other side of the aisle are enshrining us as a bailout nation. And so you complain about the taxpayers picking up the tab. I've complained about the taxpayers picking up the tab. Quit bailing them out in the first place. Now, again, we have to read the bill and not just read the slogan, because if you read the bill, what you find out is, number one, this isn't just pay restrictions that go to those in the troubled Wall Street firms. Again, it's almost every covered financial institution. And guess what? If you read further into the bill, it doesn't just cover the top officers, the top executives. Every single employee who has a quote-unquote incentive-based compensation plan could be covered by this. Now, we've already learned that somehow, with a very interpretive approach to the English language, that General Motors and Chrysler have been found to be financial institutions. This means that any employee who receives a tip, a sales commission, a Christmas bonus could have a federal bureaucrat take it away from them. Ho, ho, ho. That's what this legislation is all about. Again, don't get sucked in by the bumper sticker slogan. Read the legislation. That was the problem here on the original bailout. Nobody read the legislation. The government stimulus, nobody read the legislation. Well, fortunately, this isn't a 1,000-page bill. I think it's about 15 or 20 pages. I actually took the time to read it. And if this is just about class warfare, Mr. Chairman, why doesn't this do anything about Hollywood stars who make $25 million for a movie and yet the movie loses money? Why isn't it about a third baseman for the New York Yankees who gets $21 million and ties his worst record for striking out in the season? Why doesn't this have anything to do with the personal injury trial lawyers who make millions and millions and their clients are doing good to make thousands? Can I have an additional minute?
Yield the gentleman an additional minute.
Gentleman recognized for additional minute.
So I hear the rhetoric from the other side of the aisle, which once again seems like a lot of recycled class warfare to me. And another point I would make, Mr. Speaker, is we hear that we need this in order to somehow deal with safety and soundness. We need this legislation to somehow deal with systemic risk. Well, number one, I listened very carefully to the testimony that was presented in our committee, and I'm sure it's theoretically possible that there are pay structures that somehow may lend themselves to this. But again, show me the evidence. Where is the evidence? When I look at pay structures among financial firms that failed versus those that didn't fail, I don't see the correlation. And second of all, as we know, Mr. Speaker, the regulators have the power to regulate the liquidity and capital standards of these financial firms to make it commensurate with the risk. That's the remedy. That's the remedy, not to take Christmas bonuses away from employees. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back his time. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Well,